Okay, Ramblers, let's get rambling.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Dr. Nick.
It's Some Dumb Guy. Anybody watching has followed my new SumDumRVLiving series. You've probably seen this big-ass box hovering around in the background for quite a while. So today we're going to open this box, and hopefully everything's intact because it's a little worse for wear. Allegedly it was inspected. This is going to be an interesting one. I had to kind of save it, not necessarily for last, but I had to get to a certain point before I could do this. So I had to have some room to work with it and get it properly set up. And a lot of that involves having to get rid of my old recliner and get the new couch set in, because otherwise this thing wouldn't have had a home. And I didn't want to build it with that one because it's big. This thing, 47 inches wide, 61 tall, 11 inches deep. Now this is going to be a little bit of a kind of creative modification, engineering, whatever you want to call it, because this is a big ass shoe rack. Yes, shoe rack. My hope, my goal, is that I can convert this into a badass movie shelf, movie rack, a two-way one, because it's 11 inches thick. And the place that I want to put it and how I want to go about doing this, I think I can display it, movies facing front and back. So this particular unit has a fixed shelf. Basically it's three separate columns, right? So you've got left, middle, right. Middle is some wide space shelving with a drawer and everything else. Okay, fine. The left and right columns are split into two halves with a fixed shelf. Because this was made for shoes, none of the shelves aside from the middle column have enough vertical clearance to place a movie, a DVD, a Blu-ray, a case, whatever. My hope and intention here is to take each section that's divided off by one of those fixed shelves, which is going to give me 4 separate individual sections, and not install one shelf out of each of those 4, and instead take the space, the vertical clearance, and divide it equally, distribute that space equally between all the shelving minus 1 for each, which would give me the space that I need to modify it and repurpose it as a movie rack. The goal then will be to set it against its side along my wall. Instead of the back being against the wall, a side will be against the wall, and it will run out perpendicular from the armrest of my couch, allowing me to store movies on both sides, and thus creating a kind of horseshoe-shaped alcove, if you will, for my desk and the bulk of my movie library. If it's successful, we'll then turn and also double as my new filming location for my channel. So we're going to open this bad boy up, go through some parts. The manual will determine which of the parts that I'm going to need for modification first and foremost, and then the rest will get set aside because it's going to take a bit of work to make this happen. It's not going to be a fast project. So let's do this. I've got all the relevant parts to put together and modify the bottom half of this unit. The rest I'm leaving in the box for now. Here I can do it one of 2 ways. I can do bottom half, top half, or I could do left section, right section, and then sandwich the middle. I'm going to try for bottom half first and see how it plays out. I'm going to start putting things together to assess where I need to start marking things off for modification. What we have here is the basis for the enclosure of the bottom left section. This would flip over, go here, this rectangle. This is each of the vertical pieces, all pre-drilled for the way the shelves are supposed to go. This bottom section is supposed to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 individual shelves, clearly not tall enough to put movies into. So we're going to eliminate one shelf from that section, make it into a 4 unit. So I need to take now, and I'm going to measure the cavity, how high it is. We're going to divide that into 4 sections. We're going to measure that out, we're going to mark it, and then we're going to re-drill for the connector bolts to get attached. And I've got to do that 2, 4, 6, 12 times just for one section. So that'll be 24 times for the bottom half. The top half has one less shelf, so it'll be less work for that one. But again, like I said, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So I'm going to do some math and then we'll get back. As for where we're at now, I've measured, ran 3 strips of masking tape across to mark where I'm going to drill height-wise, and then in alignment with the original holes. Came down, got myself a nice little cross X marks the spot. I've got my drill and drill press here, so I'm going to run these, whatever it was, I said 12 holes. I'm going to drill those in. This was just put up for alignment purposes. This is going to come off. This piece is going to come up and around after I install the actual shelves. Boom, boom, boom. If my holes get drilled accordingly and everything is fine, that's that step. So yeah, after the math, after the measurements, after the tape and the markings, after Sugar checks in for confirmation and supervision, I think everything's checking out and we're gonna move on. It's nice to get all the procedural stuff figured out now, because I'm gonna do this 3 more times. So the initial setup, of course, is gonna be the most complicated. I am doing all this in one day, unfortunately. It's getting late in the afternoon, so hopefully tomorrow I can hit it early and maybe get all the other 3 knocked out. We shall see. So we're diving in. Holes are drilled. I'm going to remove this panel here. It's not going to be needed. I'm going to peel my tape off, thread in my bolt connectors, and then see if I can put the first section together. Hopefully. Sometimes it's hard getting that drill press aligned really precisely when you're using a thicker drill bit. I probably would have done myself a service to do a slight pilot hole to get the start alignment point. Did not do that. I will correct that for the other 3, just for safety's sake. This is the first section. Progress, not perfection. I think I was slightly off on one of my holes, or two of my holes for this shelf here. It's slightly misaligned, typically within the same tolerances as these things get manufactured anyway. So, if we were just to take an example here, how this is going to ultimately play out when it's all done. I got a pair of John Wayne Classics here, Red River Range and El Dorado. On that side, and that side, there's about 3/8 of an inch space in between. That will account for variations in packaging. Otherwise, I would probably put a divider of some kind in there to keep from sliding back too far, but I don't think I really have much to worry about in this case. So this is section 1 out of 4 that I've got to modify. And I'd say as a whole, I'm pretty content with the results. Hope I continue to be. We truck on. Postscript wasn't quite as successful as I thought. I don't know exactly why, aside from the fact that I didn't remeasure all my marks before I started my drilling. I thought, you know what? Blu-ray cases are not the full extent of my library by any means. So I grabbed a pair of Alfred Hitchcock DVDs, and I'm like, let's make sure the DVD cases fit as well. I got plenty of those, right? And I'm like, hey, cool, look at that. Sits in there. I've got close to a 1/4 inch worth of gap. Second shelf down, they don't want to go in at all. Third shelf down, they don't go in. This is strange. This case goes in, this case don't. No consistency there. Bottom shelf, they both go with that same approximate 1/4 inch of space-ish. So 2 out of 4 shelves. Now, prudence would dictate I correct my error. I should. That would mean going back the same way I modified my other media shelf by removing, filling holes, letting dry, and re-drilling. This is where I have the most gappage. Is gappage a legitimate word? I'm using it. I've got minimal here, not enough here, not enough here, not enough here. So even if I were to bump this shelf up here and correct it for here, it isn't going to do anything for here. And quite frankly, I don't let it go down enough to make any difference. I mean, what I'm missing here, I mean, look at that. With little manipulation, I actually got them both in. The problem is some cases are going to be taller than others. You've got O-cards, you've got just sleeves and such for box sets, which is what I'm hoping a lot of this was going to fill. Mostly Blu-ray box sets are not necessarily the same concern, but I'd kind of like this to be as functional as possible. It also makes me concerned about how consistent I'm going to be with the other 3. I can correct it for the other 3, presumably by being more careful. But do I leave this one alone or do I fix it too? That's the big question. It won't be blatantly obvious by sight, the problem, just because the center dividing section that will be here has shelves on a different plane. It's not going to be smooth across in all 3 sections. So what's here is going to be separated by approximately 15 or 20 inches or so worth of space. But we still like to be as thorough as we can. I don't have to make this decision right now, but I don't like it. Obviously, this isn't completely squared up and straight either because, yeah, while I can get that case started, I can only get in about halfway before it seizes up on me. This one being a little bit shorter, I can get it all the way and all the way through. But it does become tighter as I go through. So if we're calling this front to back, say there's probably just shy of an 1/8 inch of a difference between front and back. And that does not make me happy. Round 2. Taking the parts for the second piece, line them up, put the bottoms on, masking tape, measured, marked, measured twice, everything checked out. Pre-drilled the 12 hole with a small pilot bit this time to give myself a better alignment mark for the bigger bit for the connector bolt. Help me find center a little bit easier. Too many shadows in such a place, let help have a physical indentation to grab. Drill those out. Now we're back to where we were before. Remove masking tape, install the connector bolts on the shelves, and see how well it goes together. Ta-da! Should we test? Drum roll. I don't have a drum roll. Someone provided a drum roll. We're getting 2 Blu-rays, 2 DVDs. Let's find out. I'm doing Blu-ray first. Why not? Now the depth thing's going to be the same. There's really no purpose in doing that, actually. Top shelf. Straight clearance. Second shelf. Same exact problem. So, this is interesting. Same 2 shelves of a problem as that one there, despite absolutely ensuring my measurements were sound. Huh. Caca. Probably, stupid hindsight 2020 issue, right? Probably should have confirmed measurements on this one before starting this one and seeing what's what. I don't know why it is that I was able to take measurement from here to here and divide that equally into 4. Why it is I have more clearance here and here than I do here and here on both. So obviously there's a height issue. There's a difference, and there shouldn't be, because everything is measured correctly. I don't understand. The shelving presumably is all this. It wouldn't matter for this because it's on top anyway, so that wouldn't have an impact. And these are all the same panel number 12, so there wouldn't be any variation there. I don't know, with the exact same problem. Imagine I'm probably just going to have to live with it, because I just don't know. The taller of the 2 cases, I've got like a 1/4 inch, dowel pin here. We'll see. Well, it's a little less than a 1/4 inch. Okay. So that makes it even less worthwhile. You think, for how little I can raise this up. I do gain an entire shelf worth of clearance if I do. There isn't really. Yeah, I mean, I guess technically speaking, I could come up and come down, and that would fix the problem. Well, holy crap, do I not want to do that? I'm going to continue with assembly after I stew a bit, and then we'll see. I've stewed. I'm not firmly decided, but the simple reality is that although my DVD numbers in my library will continue to increase in all likelihood, it'll do so at a relatively slow rate when compared to my 4K and Blu-ray library numbers. There's no real legitimate reason I should have enough of a DVD library that needs to go into this shelf to justify my labor of tweaking it ever so slightly to get those 2 shelves to be fixed. Fortunately, it is something that I can revisit in the future. God forbid I should ever have to. But I can, should I ever need to. So, we're moving on. I've got 12 connector bolts to screw into this side, and the same with this one, so that I can put the corresponding shelves that are going to conjoin these 2 units together. So, worst case scenario, we'll have the bottom half of this shelving unit completely assembled today. I did my console table episode, at the end I talked about how the entirety of all this within my slide out was a 7-piece puzzle. And everything was contingent upon everything else. Everything was based on measurements, which was derived from specifications for the products that I was buying to build and install here and everything else. And I was getting down to the wire for how things were going to play out, because all my measurements, everything panned out. It was close, but within the specifications provided, here's little sugar down there hiding. Everything zeroed in, like almost like it was made to go together that way, right up until now. And I was already concerned just as a visual reference, but here's the problem, and it's going to involve some, well, creative solutions. So this guy here was supposed to squeeze right on in here. Because I'm holding on to this with my tripod, I can't see what I'm focused on very well. And this was supposed to come up all the way against the wall. There's a receptacle down there. If you can see it, it's going to bump up against that. But where we end up with our issue, look at that. I've got, I don't know, something like 3/8 of an inch. You can see that, I hope. I'm having to crane over and lean, so I'm hoping you can see it better than I can. That was supposed to go all the way up against the wall, but up against this other shelving unit, which is the remainder of that big boy, that 2-parter. So now, this won't fit. It was supposed to. Everything played out. Somewhere, somehow, something got lost in translation. I don't know if it's on my end or manufacturing specs. I've seen those be incorrectly listed in the past. Either way, the couch is all the way against the far wall. The console table doesn't stick out as far as the couch goes, so it's not going to interfere. This new modified shoe rack is bumped up all the way against the couch. This movie rack here is bumped all the way up against my desk. And the desk is as close to the wall as I can get it now. It's hitting this, so it is restricting it from coming back, and it is approximately a 1/2 inch of clearance there. So if I was measuring off the wall, that could have accounted for the discrepancy. However, no, I wasn't, because I installed the desk and I installed this shelf, and then I measured from that shelf to the wall, and based on specs, I had enough clearance for both the couch and the shoe rack. I did, and I maybe had at most I think like 1 inch of wiggle room left over. I clearly don't. Less than that. Only real viable solution for me at this point now, it's almost the same thing about the problem I had with this, is now I empty this out, remove it, break it down, and narrow it just by that approximately 3/8 of an inch and put it back in place, because I'm not really willing to part with it. You know, as a whole, it fills that need very well for the height and the width and the depth of space that I have to work with. So now I'm just going to have to break it down, empty it out, so I can get this in place. I'll go ahead and take those movies and plug them in here on the bottom half to get them out of the way. And then this is going to have to be a project for the very, very, very near future, because that's going to leave everything now back up in the air again. But once I've gotten all that situated, I can also address this guy here. That guy there was intended to go where these boxes are stacked up behind my desk, between that and the countertop. If I narrow it down a little bit, I can squeeze it in there. I can do both those at the same time. Save a little bit of labor. Once I get my, I guess I will use my table saw for that work, and it will make short work of it. I just have a very fine-tooth blade for it. We'll do that. So yeah, anyway, update soon. Well, let's go through a bit of an update here. Change of course, I guess you could say, from my previous. There's Buddy. Hey, Buddy. So, finagling things around in frustration, I had this guy as the closest position I can get it. I decided just to grab this shelf and pull it, because there was a slight deviation, if you will, on how much clearance was down here versus up here. Focus. So I went ahead and grabbed that shelf and just kind of gave it a gentle nudge, and there was a little bit of flex there. Enough to where I gave a little push here, and guess what slid on through? See you. Buddy's gonna get comfy. This is where we're at the time. You know, I guess I didn't even think about that. I can use that little cavity there, although not really. I'll figure out what to do with that, because I can't put any movies in there. The arm rests to be in the way. I can't get anything out. I don't think, anyway. I'll have to see. Hey, buddy. So, obviously, still have to modify and build the top half. This is one of those power strips I mentioned. It's going to go venture that way, so I can reach and plug in things at my desk once it's accessible. Console table behind. New coasters. I like those. But yeah, this is what it's generally looking like. Buddy's in my seat, so I can't really look, but you know, it's might be a tad bit awkward because it's going to come up 5 feet this way. I was already concerned about that. Bye-bye, Buddy. But, you know, not a perfect world. Coming around, we're starting to get some revelation of the actual alcove. Let me zoom out a little bit. There we go. Obviously, I've got a lot of clutter I still have to deal with. I still have some movies and such. I don't know if I want to put movies in the center section. I probably end up will do so. We've got a whole box right here still full of. We've got a few in this box. But that essentially is the last of my loose stuff that I think I don't have boxed up and packed up elsewhere, which I cannot forget. So ultimately, will this modified shoe rack hold as many movies as I was hopeful? I don't know. I lose a little bit of space there where the two meet. Obviously lose space around the other side around the couch, but this whole top half, I should be able to go front to back uninhibited, which will be great. And then I just have to decide what to do with the middle. We'll see how that plays out. But, you know, I've got things like my box sets and such that I had envisioned maybe going in that center section. We'll see. I've got a few decently sized box sets to play around with. I don't know. There will also be the top shelf. They'll have some decent clearance that I can do things like that on. I don't know. It's going to be a work in progress, right? And once everything's set up, obviously there's going to be a lot of rearranging to be done. But hopefully it'll be nice because my desk being here, this will form a portion of my backdrop for my recordings to some degree, however that plays out in the end. So yeah, liking it. Still have to find a home for all my Atari games set up. Yeah, it's probably going to be the last thing to find a space, which is sad, disappointing. But yeah, here we are, and we will continue on with the upper half shortly.
Alan,